What if the very things you've buried deep inside, the desires you refuse to acknowledge, are silently shaping every choice you make? Think about that for a moment. Every suppressed impulse, every forbidden thought you pretend doesn't exist, doesn't just disappear. It hides, waiting, twisting its way into your life in ways you don't see, until the damage is done. Carl Jung warned us about this, but most people don't listen. They think repression makes them stronger, that denying their inner chaos is a sign of control. But what if the opposite is true? What if the parts of yourself you've chained in the dark are the very ones pulling your strings? Imagine this. Every relationship you've sabotaged, every opportunity you've destroyed, every cycle you can't escape. What if all of it is driven by a force you claim isn't even there? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover isn't comfortable, but it's necessary. If you've ever wondered why you keep repeating the same mistakes, why you feel a void you can't explain, this might be the answer you've been running from your whole life. Jung called it the shadow, and inside it lives every desire you've labeled as unacceptable, every hunger you were taught to fear. And here's the truth: you don't control it by ignoring it. You only become its slave. So, let's dig deeper into the part of you that terrifies you the most. But remember this: once you see what's hiding there, you can't unsee it. Think about the last time you felt an intense urge you couldn't explain, something that didn't fit the image you've built for yourself. Maybe it was anger that burned hotter than the situation demanded. Maybe it was a sudden craving for something you told yourself you didn't need. And then, almost instantly, you buried it. You told yourself, "That's not who I am." But the truth? That's exactly who you are, at least in part. Jung believed that the shadow doesn't vanish when you ignore it. It grows stronger. Every time you deny desire, every time you suppress a thought because it feels dangerous or shameful, you're feeding it. But it doesn't come back to you openly. No, it disguises itself. It slips into your life in ways that feel like fate, like coincidence, like patterns you can't break. That sudden rage at your partner, that reckless decision you swear you didn't see coming, that secret thrill at someone else's failure. It's not random. It's your shadow acting through you because you refuse to act with it. Here's the disturbing part. The desires you repress don't stay buried. They seek expression, and if you won't acknowledge them consciously, they will find unconscious ways to live. A man who prides himself on self-control might explode in violence. A woman who insists on purity might find herself drawn into an affair. It sounds like hypocrisy, but it's not. It's the inevitability of human nature. What you refuse to own will own you. And this is where destruction begins. When you reject a part of yourself, you create an internal war. You live in fragments. One self that smiles and conforms, and another self that lurks in the dark, hungry and bitter. The more you starve it, the more savage it becomes. It doesn't care about your rules or your reputation. It only knows that it exists and demands to live. So it takes over in moments you least expect, when you're tired, when you're hurt, when your defenses are weak. Jung called this phenomenon possession by the shadow. It sounds dramatic, but look around. How many people do you know who seem to sabotage themselves constantly? How many leaders fall from grace in scandals they swore they'd never be part of? How many families shatter because of secrets no one dared to speak? These aren't accidents. They're symptoms of a truth most of us can't face. The things we repress, we ultimately become. And here's the most haunting thought. The desires you reject aren't just primitive urges. Sometimes they hold your deepest vitality. That hunger for freedom you labeled as selfishness, that longing for passion you called weakness, these are forces that could make you fully alive if only you had the courage to integrate them. But instead, you smother them under layers of shame and duty until they rot and turn toxic. Then, when they finally erupt, they don't come as gentle whispers. They come as explosions that wreck everything you've built. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, what part of you have you been pretending doesn't exist? What truth have you buried so deep that you've forgotten it's there, yet somehow it still shapes your life? Picture a child learning the rules of the world. From the earliest moments, they're told what's acceptable and what's not, what earns love and what invites rejection. They learn quickly that anger is dangerous, that lust is dirty, that ambition is selfish. So they do what any child desperate for survival would do. They hide these instincts. They bury them so deep they almost forget they exist. Almost. But here's the truth Jung uncovered. Nothing buried stays buried. Those desires, those instincts, they don't die. They become the unconscious forces that dictate everything you do without your consent. Imagine driving a car blindfolded while someone else holds the wheel. That's what happens when your repressed desires take over. You think you're in control, but every choice you make is colored by something you refuse to see. Think of the man who believes he's noble because he never expresses anger. People admire his calm demeanor, his patience. But one day, after years of swallowing rage, he explodes over something trivial, a comment at dinner, a careless mistake at work, and suddenly his entire world collapses. Or the woman who prides herself on being pure, untouched by the chaos of passion. She builds a life around this ideal, convincing herself that desire is weakness. And then, out of nowhere, she falls into an affair that scorches her life to ashes. To the outside world, it looks like hypocrisy. To Jung, it's inevitability. Because here's the paradox. The more you fight your shadow, the stronger it gets. Every time you tell yourself, "I'm not that," you feed the very thing you're denying. And it doesn't sit quietly. It waits. It plots. It slips through cracks in your consciousness when you're tired, stressed, or lonely. You don't notice until it's too late. Until you've sent that text you swore you'd never send, or until you've made a choice that feels like someone else made it for you. The most frightening part? Your shadow doesn't always strike in dramatic, scandalous ways. Sometimes it destroys you slowly, silently. You wonder why you're depressed, why you're anxious, why nothing feels enough. That's what happens when life becomes a prison of your own making. A prison built from all the parts of yourself you refuse to acknowledge. You think you've created safety, but what you've built is suffocation. And this isn't just about lust or aggression. It's about every hunger you've disowned. Maybe it's your need for recognition that you hide behind false humility. Maybe it's your craving for freedom that you mask with overwork. Maybe it's your longing for love that you bury beneath cynicism. Each denial chips away at your soul until there's nothing left but a hollow version of who you could have been. Here's the cruel irony. Society applauds this. We celebrate repression as virtue. We call it self-control, discipline, morality. We reward those who wear masks so well they forget what their real face looks like. But beneath the applause, something monstrous grows. Because no matter how polished your surface is, the shadow doesn't care. It knows your secrets, your cravings, your fears, and it will not be ignored forever. Ask yourself this. If the life you've built feels suffocating, if your happiness feels fragile, what would happen if every desire you've buried finally broke free? Would it destroy you, or would it set you free? Imagine standing in front of a mirror that shows not the face you present to the world, but the one you hide even from yourself. This reflection holds the desires, fears, and shadows that you deny. The parts of you you believe are dangerous, shameful, or unworthy. Carl Jung taught that confronting this reflection is the key to freedom, yet most run the other way, terrified of what they might see. But here's the brutal truth. Avoiding your shadow only gives it more power. Every day you refuse to face your denied desires, you are walking deeper into a maze of self-deception. It's a maze where you chase temporary escapes, work, distractions, superficial relationships, anything to avoid that burning question. Who am I really when no one is watching? But the shadow waits patiently at the center, and when you finally stop running, it won't be kind. It demands reckoning. This reckoning is not about punishment, it is about integration. To live authentically, you must invite those shadowy desires out of hiding and understand them. That anger you've condemned, it may be the fuel for your courage. That forbidden passion, it may be the spark of creativity you need. Those ambitions you smothered, they may be the path to your true purpose. But none of this can happen without courage, the courage to be honest with yourself, even when the truth hurts. Imagine how much of your energy is wasted fighting yourself, denying your true nature. Imagine the liberation that could come from accepting the whole spectrum of your being, the light and the dark, the sacred and the profane. This acceptance doesn't mean giving in to chaos, it means embracing complexity, it means becoming whole. But it's a terrifying journey, because to confront your shadow is to face the parts of you that break the rules you grew up believing in. It is to confront the uncomfortable fact that you are not perfect, not wholly good, not fully in control. And that's exactly why so many people never take that step. Yet for those who do, the transformation is profound. They no longer live as fragmented selves, but as integrated beings. They can choose their actions with clarity because they no longer act out of hidden compulsions. Their relationships deepen because they bring honesty, not masks. Their creativity flows because they embrace their full emotional spectrum. This journey from denial to acceptance is not easy, but it is necessary. Because the desires you deny are not your enemies, they are your lost potential. When you refuse to see them, you destroy parts of yourself. But when you embrace them, you reclaim your power. If this message resonated with you, if you feel the stirrings of your own shadow calling for recognition, don't turn away. The path to freedom begins with awareness and courage. If you want to explore these ideas further and dive deeper into the teachings of Carl Jung and the mysteries of the human psyche, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Your journey towards self-understanding and growth starts here. Don't forget to like this video if it challenged your perspective and share your thoughts in the comments below. What desires have you been denying? How has that affected your life? Your story could inspire someone else to take the first step. Remember, you're not alone in this. Together, we can face the shadow and find the light that lies beyond it.